Okay, we are now recording. Uh, yeah. So, this is the kind of framework areas of discussion that we're going to be covering today. So disabled student experience, that's me. Syllabi and class policies, assignments and assessments, physical and virtual space, and then a little bit about disabled student programs and services. What is, Stacy? What does DSPS stand for?
That's
Okay.
Disabled Student Programs and Services. You got it.
Yeah. And then some resources. Um, so this is a set of sort of guiding questions that I think are a good way to sort of not necessarily like rethink your whole class, but just like when you're planning for a semester, when you're planning your class, these are like good, like broad questions to keep in mind as you're developing your syllabi, your assignments, your assessments, all of that stuff. Um, and to make it perhaps a little friendlier to disabled students, but also friendlier to all students, because just like not every, hang on, let me start that sentence again. Even abled people have different strengths. And different ways that they learn best. I stole these from UC Berkeley's Disabled Students Program. I will give credit. So the questions are, what do I want my students to know? What do I want my students to be able to do? What lasting impact do I want to have? What challenges to inclusion my presentation style or the physical or virtual environments create? And how can I plan my presentations or set up my classrooms to provide meaningful access to all members of my class, um, and minimize the need for individual accommodations without compromising the essential components that I've identified? I know there is often worry among instructors of all kinds about compromising academic rigor in the name of accessibility. And I think that if we instead approach it like in a backwards planning way, where we start with, okay, what is actually important in this class for my students to be able to take with them when the class is over, and gear everything towards that rather than sort of doing things the way that Western education has always been done. So this is now Brandy's turn.
All right.
So some of the things when I think about syllabus and class policies, the key points we want to talk about are the experiences in higher learning that students have, discuss it, and then how your class policies support students in different reports, and then how do you build community with the syllabus and your class policy? Click here. And so for me, I am still in the process, right? Every semester, like most of you, I will look at my syllabus, think that it's too long, then still think about it. So things like creating a liquid syllabus is something I'm thinking about too. I have a template that Greg gave me I'm considering. And then I've always had a DSPS statement in my syllabus that I got from DSPS that I modified to sound more inclusive, meaning I cut it down a little bit. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. And then as far as class policies go, I give students a survey about past learning experiences. And so sometimes being able to be aware, do a little brief assessment in your own classes allows you to know a little bit more about what some of the anxiety students are coming with or just general worries. And so you're kind of removing those barriers so they can access just the education. Target dates is language I've switched to over due dates. Why did I do this? I can explain a little bit later when we get to another slide. But target dates for me make more sense when students are actually living their lives in that way anyways. And so due dates are nice. I love due dates. I don't mind them, but students have a hard time. So I've talked about switching to target dates and I now do it with a late penalty included. Advising time. So I always do this even when we teach in the Equity Academy. We will advise, like time or attention is learning. You know, I'm not going to give you a time exam, but I might say spend 90 minutes with this for me, right? You might get more from it. And so in our class policies, when we say things, we want to give a little bit more open conversation about why. What is making you say, I want this to be the thing you do? And how do we do it again together? Next slide. And so when it comes to my class policies, things that I've made that have been like new, I built them over the years I've been here now. And so I use modules to track student progress, which is common for some people on campus now. I use open pedagogy and I'm actually taking away the word rubric over time. Why? I don't need, the rubric is for me. It's really for me when I grade, and it reads like it's for me, right? I don't want that. I want students to understand what do I want from them, right? I want it to be in plain language so they know how to earn the right grade, meaning whatever grade they think they want to earn. I've also added for my Harvard courses, like my law and ethics course, module workbooks, right? Students said what they say. It's hard to read everything. I said, I agree, I understand. I'll give you a condensed thing to read and review so you're catching the gist of the chapters, even if you're missing things that I'm offering in the modules. Practice quizzes, no matter what subject you may teach, people may offer these. Students will take them, but you remind the student to not test to the quiz, right? That the things in there are things to study when you come upon it, right? Not to keep taking the practice quiz over and over again. So the discussion is what you do in the beginning of the class. All you thing I'm saying to everybody here, I say this as I talk about my syllabus in the first class meeting. Untimed exams, I switched to untimed exams when I started, and I thought I had a higher rate of more students from DSPS than other professors. I asked research to help me understand, did I? And slightly yes, right? Because I teach in social work human services and chemical dependency. So I was like, oh, I'm realizing this may not be helpful in general for my discipline, right? So untimed exams matter for the field they teach in, but also are relevant to the student, right? They may like it sometimes, but also it could be another barrier. So being conscious of in your class policy, no matter how you talk about it, can be very helpful. I also added active learner challenges within my modules. And so I have the general content, then I'll say a little subheading, active learner challenge. Here's some other things you can look at or do. That helps the students stay involved in the course even when I'm not actively with them, right? And that's building that classroom policy, which is an environment and a community of people that have a shared goal, right? To learn something all together. In my online classes, I try to use equitable breakout rooms. Again, I wish somebody would help me rename that. That's what I keep calling it. It makes sense to me, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. But the reality is synchronous courses, and that's what I mostly teach, or on-ground ones. Students need time, and I need to move students based on what they're coming with. They need to tell me that, not me. So equitable breakout rooms look like a student may come in, I have 3 breakout rooms. The first room might be, I didn't read the instructions. I have no idea what you're talking about. Cool, stay here with me. Room 2 might be, I read it, kind of get it, not sure. Okay, you're going to go to room 2. There's a student in there, they understand a little bit. You can talk to them. Room 3, I got it, I started it, and I might need to know, right? A couple questions. Okay, you go to room 3. I visit each room, right? And that way the students can also move to each room. Why? So they can find out what they don't know. My point is to teach them how to get the stuff they know.
Really? There's a question, and that is, how do you do untimed exams during an in-person class?
I don't.
Synchronous. I mean, asynchronous.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, in what I would imagine, an on-time exam in a course would just be the course time, right? You wouldn't be able to say it can go on. DSPS students get accommodation to take a test as long as they may need whatever they have the accommodation for. But generally, on-ground classes, if you were doing a timed exam, I say do it yourself first, just without reading your own content. If you finish it in your set time, make the students try it. If you can't do it, don't ask them to do it, right? Or double it, right? If you did it in 60 minutes, give them 120. And so that's the thing to think about for on-ground courses. And then lastly, I'm thinking about extra credit. Students that are coming to campus and doing all kinds of things like tutoring, going to these appointments, but they may miss a class or two. Can I give them some understanding, right? They're still involved in the campus in a way, maybe they're not present with attendance, but they can kind of make up. And often students that have either physical ailments, mental health issues, or other things may need extra time or time away from the class, right? And I don't want to penalize them, but I also want to hold them responsible for their commitment to the course. As I mentioned before, target dates seem to work really well. They work well, especially if you have like a cohort where you're working with a set group of students. Like my discipline is all the same students that are going to be in the major. And so when we work together, they all have an idea, this project is due on this date. This is the tools I gave you in class to do it, right? This is what you will learn when you complete the assignment. That turns out to be more meaningful to students, right? When I say I'm going to teach you 3 things with this assignment, not just one, right? If you can do it in the way I'm asking. And then again, we're doing the module, ensure that I encourage discussion as we're having it, but also students are telling me about the target date, right? Like I never do Sunday. No offense to y'all that do Sundays. I do Thursday to counter the narrative, right? Why? I'm going to grade on Friday. Yep, I tell them the truth, right? So that allows students to know ahead of time, what am I doing and how am I going to manage that contact with them? And then lastly, I spoke to these already, the practice quizzes and the untimed exams. And then active learner challenges for extra credit. Students want to use makeup as extra credit. They're different things to me. And so I like extra credit to me. You did something in addition to what I asked. So not making up something they missed. And when it comes to things in my actual syllabus, over time, I've taken things like the inclusivity statement. There's an example in here I think I offered when we sent out the slides to you all. And part of that inclusivity statement names the current climate of the world a little bit. We were given it many years ago now to be able to use it.
I did.
It's all right, of course. This is the one with the ouch, but it might be in the notes possibly. But what I learned with inclusivity statements is students may or may not read them. But when I talk about community agreements and things that students might need to do to be successful in the course, I've used the OUCH acronym, which I created a long time ago, but I don't really talk about as much anymore. But it's another tool. Thank you. It's another tool that allows students. It's another tool in social work, right? And so remember, that's what I teach. And so oftentimes students are coming in not knowing what a community may look like, right? So I'm helping them shape that. And I'm also helping them understand what are some of the basic things about creating a classroom community. Those that have varied disabilities or varied abilities might have other questions, right? How they want to feel safe in the classroom. So I've had those things come up before. Removing barriers to equity. One thing I'm not big on is any excuse absences. On-ground courses, they run different, forgive this later. But for on-ground classes, I can kind of understand. But for online courses, students still think they can give an excuse absence, right? They can give me a document. I remind them that I protect their confidentiality. I don't need to see your personal information, right? If you need to be listed, you're listed. That's been the best for me, right? Nothing is requested for me in that way, right? When I'm calling it. So I remove that barrier, but I tell students, no matter what you're going through, still talk to me. I don't need all the details of your personal things, right? Unless you want to share. But a lot of students worry when they do have medical issues if they're dealing with those things and other stuff. And so you want to be aware of that and talk to them ahead of time about flexible deadlines or target dates. Like, hey, this is what I want you to stay on. Every 3 weeks, do something. You'll stay up with the course, right? Even if you miss a due date per se.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on to just a reflection of maybe things you already do in your classroom. So there's a Padlet if you want to write down in the Padlet, or we can just talk
In the chat.
There's put it in the chat, or like raise your hands and you can speak through the Zoom. Yeah. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to reflect, and then if anybody wants to share out, we'll come back or two.
If it's not, it's okay. I'll add it later, so we'll have it.
I had set up the Padlet if we had more people than we do, so feel free to type anywhere.
This one,
Really are like, she's really good.
she's really good.
Must be a librarian.
Gonna give you one more minute.
I just stopped because Padlet says, write something beautiful.
Right.
That's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Okay, does anybody want to share anything? The quiet group today.
That's okay.
Is there anything in the Padlet?
There's a couple.
There you go.
So to get around the issue of being able to expand the time limits for an in-person class, I have a more traditional kind of take in class multiple choice exam. And then I have what I consider to be very challenging take home written questions that they can complete. I think I give them 2 or 3 days and then I give extensions. And it's a lot more grading. It really is. But I find that the grades I think are more representative of the knowledge gained than the multiple choice alone. And it allows a little bit of accommodation for students who aren't enjoying that multiple choice format, which almost no one does.
I don't think I ever.
I like the other one too.
Yes.
Yeah, so the other one is include a link to the DSPS services and some language about it in my welcome email and syllabus. And then also reach out to the people who request accommodations to talk about how we can work together to help, which is exactly, yes, good. Thank you. And then we have
There's a hand
a
raised. We have a
so yeah, go ahead and talk.
Hi, it's Bao. And so last semester, I scheduled and invited Stacy and Julie to come into my ethnic studies class to share the resources. And I'm going to do that again this semester. So I think that that's super helpful because a lot of times I don't even know the resources around campus. And if I don't know, then how do my students know? And so intentionally scheduling, reaching out to all the resources and having them come in. And so I've done that with a lot of the student support centers on campus.
It's wonderful. Yes, thank you, Val. Anybody else? Mary Ann, I see your hand. We can't hear you. Oh, where'd they go? Mary Ann. You're muted. You need to have your hand up. Oh no, your mic's not working. Okay. Well, you can type what you want in the chat or the Padlet. Yeah. Wow. They're typing. Anybody else?
I mean, I do a similar due date, like I love target date. Perfect. So every assignment in my course has a set date, but I tell my class at the beginning of the semester that that is when I recommend assignments be completed for the best learning. But I say the actual due date is the last day that we meet in class for them to receive credit because there has to be some in semester class. So, and I've had some students, I would say most students love that. And I've had a couple who say, like, you ruined the last week of the semester for me because I did all my work. And I was like, well, and I prompt every I do that. I spent, like 90 seconds reminding everyone of where they should be. And I was just reviewing student reviews from last semester. And I think students really appreciate the flexibility.
Yes, I know they do.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, so Marion in the chat, says, I was an assistant for a professor that had 3 exams throughout the quarter, but only counted 2. It was a universal design choice. Most of our students were traveling athletes, but we had a student that became temporarily disabled and hospitalized halfway through the quarter, and he was still able to pass because he had completed the first 2 exams.
Wow.
Yeah. So, did the students take 3 exams and then it was dropped the lowest scored one? Yeah, okay, yeah, so that's definitely another way.
Nice. Also, so that's, I do best 3 out of 4, which if the students do well on the first 3, they don't have to take the final. So some people are like, oh, it's an optional final. I'm like, it is not an optional final.
I'm gonna be fired.
Happy with your yeah, dropped 1 lowest score, 1 lowest homework score. Jane in the chat says, yes, that's incredible. From a student perspective, when I was a student, one of the most helpful things for me was flexible deadlines. Like I had multiple instructors who were like, here is a range, like here's a 2-week range. You tell me when you want to submit your paper. You choose your own due date, and that way I could work it around my other classes so that the load wasn't everything coming due at once. And the other thing that I wish my instructors would have done is not requiring doctor's notes for absence or sickness, because unfortunately in this country, healthcare is a privilege and not a right. And so who has access to doctors to get a note? Like we have an on-campus nurse, but so that's not good enough. And then like, what do you do if you're not on campus? Because I was mostly a remote student again, due to being disabled. So like, yes, those, if I could, two things that I could ask you to do for the sake of your students, those would be the 2. Jay, you have your hand up.
Just a question. I don't personally want my students coming to class sick, but I have in-person classes this next semester. I don't know. Can somebody tell me how they deal with that? Because they're not going to be able to miss a bunch of classes either.
Leslie has an answer.
Well, one thing, so depending on how many classes they miss, and if it ends up that they cannot pass, I always recommend that my students work with admissions and records for medical drops that doesn't have a notation on their transcript. So I mean, a year ago I had a student who had to have surgery, another student who had really severe mental issues. And, when it comes to that point in the semester that they've missed so many times, and especially if they're not passing at that point, I usually recommend that they reach out to admissions and records for the medical drop.
And some of them don't know that's an option.
Exactly. Right.
I didn't know that was an option, and I have a master's degree, so I went through all of it.
I think that's a good point too. I feel like once the students can be more honest about what they may need, I feel like the doctors know often is telling me something else is going on. Like, I'm trying to hear that. And sometimes if it's like a surgery or something like that, I'm like, no matter what I do, I can't compete with that thing, right? You need to take care of your health. And they may not know. So that may be a good thing to add in, that how do professors access the information about the medical students?
Yeah.
And should it be provided by DSPS too? Like another thing, information on the website.
Yeah,
So
that's a great idea.
Yeah, if they have something that comes up. But yeah, it happens sadly sometimes.
Yeah.
And they can do that after the drop date.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if there's nothing else, we're going to move on to assignments and assessment. Is Leslie Gale.
So on this slide, how do people show understanding of your subject outside of the classroom and college? I love that perspective. We're preparing them for life. We're preparing them for careers. And are there barriers that are maybe not necessary to their success in their lives and in their careers? that maybe you could reconsider. We know we have the SLOs, but they're very general, and we have a lot of flexibility with how we ask our students to fulfill those SLOs. And so when you are thinking about your SLOs and your assignments and your assessments, think about what are you hoping they'll be able to do after your class?
Oh, thank you, Heather. That's really helpful.
Oh, yes. Oh, yay. Maybe we can add that to this.
Yeah, Heather, with your permission, I would like to add this somewhere to our slides. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next slide. Here we go.
So my experience and my research is mostly on neurodivergent students, and they have some needs that may be different from other disabilities. And group work is a challenge, especially at the beginning of the semester. And rethink what I'm asking is, I love group work. A lot of students love group work. Not all students love group work, and some of them have extreme anxiety going into group work. So think about alternative opportunities for those students who would rather not have to be in a circle with other students, making eye contact and being expected to say something when maybe they don't feel prepared to do that. So think about what are some non-traditional ways people can contribute. And I think that's a good transition to the lower right-hand slide. A few creative assignments. So what I wanted to sort of talk about is what are essential things that students have to do in your class. So when I'm teaching a writing class, the students have to write. And so I can't do something completely different for them, but I can create assignments that they can be more successful with. I want to just really promote the idea of an e-portfolio. So here at CRC in the English department, we have a co-requisite class. We have a C1000, used to be called 300, and then there's a support class afterwards. In the support class, the students use e-portfolios, and so they do essays in the C1000 portion, but then they're able to take that and put it into their e-portfolio. When they create their e-portfolio, they choose a theme that reflects them. They may choose colors. A lot of students have dogs or cooking, so that they're feeling like this isn't just a sterile paper that anybody could have written, that this is me and this is how I'm presenting my work. Or my classes that don't have a writing requirement, literature classes, in my mythology class, I had 35 students, and I would say maybe an eighth of those students were neurodivergent. The first assignment that they did, first week, was to complete a survey asking them, what are your talents? What are you interested in? In what ways do you consider yourself creative? And then as we go through the semester, they have opportunities of showing what they understood about their myths in different ways. So a few examples that came from my mythology class. So one of these was a 301. So we read a play, and a student could show their understanding of probably one of the most important scenes in the play and putting it into creating a graphic novel of that scene. I've had a couple of students create original video games, retelling a myth. or they took what they learned in my class and what video games were already out there, that there are a lot of myth-related video games, and comparing and contrasting through slides. A photo essay on a theme. We have a lot of students who love photography, videography. They can make a short video showing what they learned, any kind of artistic musical compositions. Not only do they get to reflect their learning in a way that comes natural to them, it's super fun for me, so much fun for me to see what they've been able to do, and I can see that they are fulfilling the SLOs through those kinds of assignments. So just a couple of other things to think about is flexible assignments. What options can you provide? Does it have to be all size? That's one size fits all for your students. Can they have some choice in how they show their understanding? I always show, look, I love seeing something, saying, I'm using that for an example for next semester, giving them a sense of what maybe could this look like. Allow revisions after feedback, and structure group assignments with clear roles and options for how to contribute. The group is always tricky, and a lot of students say they hate it, especially if it's outside of the class. And I've had students who have very negative experiences, even my own son, who's neurodivergent, who had very negative experiences in group work. And so talk to the student, find out how can they fulfill this without having to have that uncomfortable interaction with others. Okay, so you can see under exams, there's some suggestions as well. And I think that is all for me.
Yeah, so we've got case study.
All right. So I want to just say before I start melting up here again, if you see me dab, it's not to be cute. I'm actually sweating. So it's not for cuteness. So I wanted to give, and I'm going to just paraphrase a lot here for these slides 1, 2, and 3. Because part of it is I don't want to make it sound like I just decided one day to do untimed exam. That wasn't how that went, right? I am in a field where everything is timed, right? I took a state exam to be licensed many years ago now that was under due pressure, right? But I wanted to bring that to our attention because oftentimes it might be like Dr. Gale said, when you're going into your profession, there's things you must be prepared for. And some of us are trying to kind of incorporate that with a due respect of inclusion, right? Accessibility. And so I gave this example of professor teaching, right? Which I've heard this come up. And they want students to be prepared if they want to do a graduate program, right? That graduate programs, to get the state licensure, you're going to have to pass a timed exam, right? And they do give accommodations now if you did not know for timed state exams, depending on what you may have. So this example here in this case study is a reason why this person, Professor Martinez, wanted to set their exams at 120, just arbitrary numbers, right? We kind of say, oh, 2 hours. So like, no, that's not really helpful. Next slide. So the one thing is, what if a student is having some issues, right? And they come to Professor Martinez and they're like, hey, I don't work that way. Like you have it timed, but I take a break, right? I need these things, even though I get additional time. Like this doesn't quite fit for me. Do I have to be held to this standard in the field? This is necessary right now. And again, this is going back to like an open discussion, the point, right? Why are we talking to students about this time versus untimed exams? And can we explain to them other ways I can see their skill sets, right? Without timing it, right? And so as I gave this example here, they seem under pressure, right? And so when a student says that, we want to be very conscious of, is there another way, right? Can they do it and not feel under pressure? They still got to do it, sorry, but can it be not under pressure, right? And so the fact there that the little statement from the pretend student is, I'm still learning to take all this stuff in. Can you kind of dial back some of this and give me a little bit of reprieve in what I'm trying to accomplish and how challenges may be? The next slide, please. And so part of understanding any assignment you make, especially exams, and I love the question earlier about on-ground courses and how could that look? That's why I said you would take it yourself, right? I love the example Jessica gave. Because if I can't finish it in 30 minutes and I think I could, that's a problem, right? And so I want to be conscious of that. What are the skills a student may need developmentally to get through that I can teach in other ways, right? By practicing active learner challenges, etc. Are my policies in my class also equitable in the way I assess students, right? So it's not just about the timed exam, right? It's about anything I give students where I'm assessing a SLO based on something I believe they need to show me they can do, right? Students that have varied learning abilities might say, I can't learn it in that way. I then must think of other ways too, right? We must be constantly open to other ways to teach and to show them how to learn. They have to come to us to ask, right? That's where we run into that. Come talk to me, I can promise I have skills. And then policies should shift when students do not have, so how do policies shift if students do not have formal DSPS accommodation? Again, I tried to build a classroom and it's almost working. I say almost loosely. Where a student that comes with accommodations, they're usually surprised that I can say my class is already going to meet most of those, if not all of them. Mine is note taker, right? And if I don't have a note taker, which I often have not had lately, I've already preloaded my course with accessible lecture slides, outlines for taking notes, etc. So those things do take time, right? That's why we say build it over your courses over time and make sure you know there's supportive structures. And the way you check that, you ask the students, right? Do an exit survey for your course. Say, hey, I did these things this semester. Does this fit for you? And if they say, well, yes, I like some of that. No, I didn't. You can always recalibrate, right? Reassess what the student may need. And that's like the part of universal design. Can I constantly reassess? As I learn more about the varied needs of students, can I reassess what they need from me? And can I make my classroom such that they can only get the things they need from me and not trying to accommodate things, just getting exactly what they need to learn? So teaching challenges when it comes to anything to do with deciding like time limits seems to be a thing, or things due at specific points like target dates, due dates. And so you want to be able to think about professional expectations, right? You want to honor it, be aware of it, but you don't want to be kind of held to it so much so that you become rigid, right? On a job they don't have yet. Like free that thinking up and allow yourself to think of other ways they can learn that. Realize that every student, no matter what age they may be, are coming in at different developmental stages across the lifespan, right? Not just intellectual, emotional, etc. And so we want to make sure we reduce testing barriers. Why? Because they will have more tests. They might feel for sure. I don't want them to pick up a testing habit where they're afraid and they won't get to licensure, right? I want them to get comfortable with test taking because that's what they'll get used to doing in my field. If students have something in a diverse way, be it cognitive diverse, culturally learning needs that I have not yet come across, which comes up sometimes, I want to know, right? Can you tell me a little bit more why you said that's hard for you to do when I thought differently, right? It's having a conversation. And then encouraging the true point of your courses, right? Is it about information seeking or memorization? I don't live in a field part of the graduate level where the students need to memorize something. It's too much, right? They will look things up in my discipline. So I don't use that in my quiz as much to say you have to memorize something, right? But you do need to know where to find it, right? A legit source, still doing that. Yeah, still doing that. Yeah.
Back to the librarian.
You're still doing that. Legit sources.
Yeah, so here's our second reflection prompt. How do you make your classwork and assessment inclusive for disabled students? Or how do you think you could start doing that if you are hearing some things that will, oops, sorry. Me and this computer.
Okay, sometimes.
So I will open the tablet again. And as with every quick session, we are running a little long. So I'm probably gonna give you a little less time to think about it. It's a different tablet link, Marianne, for your question. If it's not a different Padlet link in the QR code, then I have made a mistake.
They can respond in the chat too. They see the
Yeah,
question.
it's fine. We can respond in the chat or just use the whatever. I'm gonna give you 1 more minute. So yeah, we've got one response in the Padlet. So I had 2 students with accommodations letters, one for 2 times the time and one for 1.5 times the time. You are able to easily set this for my last online class in Canvas. And I also sent materials in advance.
That's great.
Anybody else have anything to share? Ideas? Allow the option to work alone if they prefer not to be part of a group. Yeah.
For people who do that, do you change the assignment at all? Because I do group work, I'm ashamed to say
Oh, no.
that. And I've had students ask to get out of it and I've accommodated that because no questions asked, like, sure, but I feel like soon everybody's going to want to do that. And it's not going to be a group assignment anymore because I do have, especially last semester, a lot of challenging group dynamics that came out of in my research methods class. And then I thought, well, if people are doing it alone, technically they're doing way more work. So I don't want to make the assignment harder. I don't want to penalize that. So do people just say, okay, you can just do the same assignment, but by yourself? Because my group assignments, there's a lot of work.
Uh, I have students that have this come up, but shameless ploy, right? Because I teach what I teach, I tell them they're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, respectfully, right? Like,
Yeah.
I need to know what happened in your group, right?
I inject myself a lot. Like, I am here to not just facilitate the assignment, to facilitate the group
Yes.
work, because those are solid skills to try to work on. But
So if you come up usually one time, and I do just 2 group assignments. I get what you're saying, right? So I do 2 just to keep it. And oftentimes, if a student needs to not be in it, if it's something harmful occurring, meaning like someone has said something that is disrespectful, then I bring the dean into that combo, right? Because that's different, right? But if it's a matter of, well, they're never meeting, they're not filling out stuff. Well, what are you doing? What are they doing, right? And it's okay. They do a group survey at the end. Just like a survey.
30% of their grades.
Yeah. So their group has to say, how did they show up, right? And it's anonymous just to me. And if they didn't show up, well, I use it as part of the SLOs for the program, right? That's a CTE benefit sometimes. I can say this is not a program behavior, right? You're gonna have to work in multidisciplinary groups across your career. You gotta get with it, right? But on the other hand, if I had a group assignment, I would do what you just said. I duplicate it, remove them from the big group assignment, and make a single assignment add-on in Canvas. Like you can add on an extra due date. Yeah, you could do that too. And some students have asked for that, and I say I do it with caution.
Yeah.
Only if it's really like I can't work with others. Like, yeah.
Marianne put something in the chat, which is when I made assignments that could either be group or single, I gave the group slightly more questions, but they were questions that required multiple people to answer, such as describing your different perspectives or reflecting on your conversations. Thank you for sharing, Marianne and Brandy.
Something popped into my head with this because it's like automatic for me, but I realized after reviewing some people that it's not necessarily, I provide my notes ahead of time.
Oh, that's stellar.
And
Yeah.
I think everybody should, or provide at least outlines or something to give students ahead of time for lectures.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh gosh.
All right, I do want to move on just to maintain space. Or sorry, the time. I don't want to keep people. So we're going to talk about physical and virtual space. So this section was put together by our colleague Serena Fuller, who is not able to be with us today because she's doing a different thing. So I'm presenting her information, but it's her information and I'm just the mouthpiece. So physical and virtual space. The guiding questions that Serena used for thinking about this for these 2, which is what do I want my students to be able to do, and what lasting impact do I want to have? And Serena's goal is to create physical and virtual environments that have a positive impact on skill development and long-term learning. Just going to go over this really, really quickly. Physical space So consider classroom arrangement. Most of you are in Zoom today, but if you were in the classroom that we're in, which is Win 103, it is one of the least accessible classrooms I have ever had the misfortune of being in. There are so many desks in here. If you are in a larger body or you are you use any kind of mobility devices, it is impossible to navigate. And it sucks and I hate it. So consider that, like, if there's people who have mobility devices, people who are in larger bodies, like, look at your classroom and be like, is this navigable? No. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we got into this classroom, one of the accommodatory desks was in a corner facing the wall, which doesn't. Yeah, at all. Yeah,
Pulled it back a little bit.
There's too much furniture in this room, it's bad, and it's not ADA at all. This is a flagrant violation of ADA. Anyway, also air purifier in your classrooms if you are worried about people bringing sicknesses. You can request that through capital outlay budget or perhaps the health and safety committee. Yes. So virtual space, there are a ton of instructional design resources that are on the next slide. We talk more about this, but yeah, make sure that your documents are accessible and that they have headings and a bunch of other stuff so that screen readers can read them. Because we have many students who use screen readers, and variety of learning materials, and transcripts and captions for recorded materials, and there is help that you can request to get things captioned or transcripts, and that's more on the next slide. There's some resources, and then student sensory experience. So there are a lot of us who are disabled in various ways, like get overstimulated or are very understimulated while sitting. So like, let people move around, let people wear sunglasses, let people wear headphones to block out noise, and then like let them use fidgets or standing materials, whatever. So next slide. So these are all great. The Fast Track OEI Rubric Academy is one, a paid opportunity that you can enroll in. And two, as part of the process, they will provide assistance with doing all of the actual labor of updating your documents and providing transcripts and captions and stuff and making sure all of your stuff is accessible. We will be emailing out this PowerPoint to everybody here, so please don't feel like you need to save it because we'll get it to you. Soon, probably later today. So this is this is a case study from Serena. Faculty often start course design by asking what content do I need to cover, and which fair, yes, we all, we want to make sure that we get the material across to the students, but Serena's case study focuses on the two other questions as they relate to the physical environment in her classroom, which is, what do I want my students to be able to do, and what lasting impact do I want to have? And Serena wanted to have a sort of like, I don't know if ethos is the right word, but and a physical space that encourages collaborative problem solving rather than the traditional model like this one unfortunately is, where there's a couple of people or one person who is just imparting their wisdom onto the blank slate students. And that's how her classroom was set up. Designed for a unidirectional flow of information and is exclusionary by design. So it's similar to this. This is an AI generated image. So some issues with this is I mean, you know, if I had more time, I'd ask you to point out the issues.
So
Yeah.
many.
Feel free, you see issues, feel free to pop them in the chat so that at least we're participating a little bit and it's not quite so me talking to you. Anyway, so passive learning, so people just sit and absorb information. Hopefully, a lot of the time people don't absorb information while they're sitting and being talked at. So the turn and talk failures, so to discuss in groups, they can't. This is not, you can't do group work when you're all sitting in rows. And so the noise level skyrockets because everybody's yelling, trying to be heard to their group members across a very big table, which is very overwhelming for those of us with sensory stuff. And anybody with a physical disability, so anybody who uses a wheelchair or a scooter or whatever, where is a place for them? There is no place for them. You're just excluded by default. And then also students in larger bodies. The chairs with arms, you can't fit in them if you can't fit in them. This is actually something that I run into. There are many chairs where I'm like, well, I can't literally sit down in this because it does not accommodate me. And that is a problem of the furniture and not a problem of the student. And the fixed height tables and chairs is also a problem that I run into a lot. Like literally my knees do not fit under many desks because I am a very tall person. And it's extremely uncomfortable. So this is bad design. This style of classroom is very bad design. So, whoops.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So I have had some really awful classrooms that were not at all conducive to the way I teach. And this semester, like I'm on my way out in a few years. This semester, I said, I cannot do what I need to do in this room. And my administrative assistant found me a room. If it is not working, you ask.
I mean, ask, and also if it is an accessibility issue for your students, you need to demand because the law is clear. ADA, like it's a law, and I realize that if you don't have tenure, it's a little more. It feels a lot risky to start coming in and being like, I need
Demands.
to be different. Which I respect and understand. But I will say, if you have tenure, please start demanding better. Because if it is only those of us who have the disabilities demanding, it's a lot easier to ignore us. But if it starts being a collective action thing, then we will get farther in making things better. So anyway, this is an AI generated image that Serena generated for basically like an ideal classroom. So the power of the triangle, yeah, so triangle desks are, I mean, you can see in the picture, they're modular. They create, they can create, if they're on wheels, you can move them around as needed and create bigger tables or smaller tables or individual tables. So yes, it's better. And so this is a way better way for a classroom to be oriented. It's flexible, it's movable, it very easily generates discussion and collaboration among students. And also it's accessible for people who use mobility devices, and there are armless chairs that are accessible for people who do not fit in armed chairs. Armed chairs is a funny sentence that brings up the idea of a chair, the sphere. Anyway, And then Tina no longer stays at the podium and she moves around the classroom to like little pods of students. And so the flow of information becomes multi-directional. So the students are talking with each other, the professor is talking with the students, the groups are talking with the groups. And it is just more interactive. And students, we know for a fact that students learn better when the material and the environment is more interactive. Yeah, this is our next discussion prompt. So what physical and virtual space adjustments do you use or could you use to improve learning for students? What impact do you see for students when physical or virtual spaces have limitations? And I will bring up the Padlet. And I'll give you a few minutes to reflect. Again, feel free to write in the Padlet or feel free to just write in the chat or speak in the Zoom.
I had a class in the portables by the tennis court, and I had 2 students in
Yeah.
First of all, it's almost impossible to get to them.
Yes.
And there was no way for them to move in the portables.
DSPS was in the portable for many, many, many years. I mean, DSPS was in the world. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a giant bubble in the middle of the floor. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think students would, I've had small enough class, like even this classroom is, again, not my favorite one either. I've taught all kind of things in here and I still don't like it. But I think the classrooms that I moved to where I can move desk in a way to a semi-U shape, something circular is preferred. I think when we're talking about accessible space, we're also talking about creating communal space, right? That it gives an eye, and Serena had in her slide where it says something at the bottom. She referenced social engagement, something like that she said, but part of it, yeah, go to that one. She said, learning becomes an active social process rather, oh no, can't read it. Oh, then sorry, you moved up here, see. But I feel like that's what students expect sometimes. They want just this opportunity that they think they're going to hear somebody talk at them. That is no longer learning. I'm sorry to report, right? It's not bad, it's just no longer learning. And so how
Should have stadium.
yeah, oh, yeah, the bigger ones like in the LRC. Yeah.
Like we have a theater for the theater productions.
Yeah.
Right.
We have a forum for, more theater productions or whatever, but yeah, we don't need classrooms like they are. I mean, I would argue that the stage on the stage model was not only is it no longer learning, but it was never learning.
Just taking notes and saying it back, basically.
What's it?
Is anybody in the team want to share anything?
Okay, do we have rooms with triangle desks?
We-
In library 107.
Library 107.
107.
They've got the wheels.
Yeah.
And they can move all over the place in there.
Yeah. And the library itself also has a lot of like modular, flexible study seating. I don't know how many students can fit in room 107.
It's 30 would be really pushing it.
Yeah.
So it's for the smaller classes.
But in terms of furniture, this is what the COB process is for.
Right.
So, which, if you aren't familiar, it's the capital outlay budget, which is basically how we're going to spend our money for the next 2 years. And if you have a classroom that you use that is just unworkable, it's definitely worth advocating to try and get different, better setup for it.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be giant either. Last
No.
semester, I was in one of the tiny VF, like little rooms, and I had a student with a cane, and the desk was set up in such a way that the trash cans were underneath the DSPS desk. And she had nowhere to put her cane when she sat down. So she asked me, "Can you move these trash cans every day when you come in?" And I said, "Sure." And then I saw the custodian outside and asked her if we could permanently move the trash cans to another location, which we did. They kept getting moved back. But we moved them, and I saw her move them, but it wasn't a big ask. It was easy. And it made that student able to be there, because otherwise she couldn't be.
Yeah.
And also, why are there trash cans under the DSPS desk?
Yeah, sometimes, especially if you're trying to accommodate just an individual student, it can be as simple as like, well, I need a chair that doesn't have arms.
Yeah, common sense.
Or I need a desk that's not attached to the chair, like the DSPS tables. There's a couple in here, which is why I keep pointing over there. So that kind of thing. Anybody in the Zoom have anything to share?
That's another thing. It's not necessarily disability, but it's equity. I was having really big issues with the disparity between my online classes exam performance and my in-person class exam performance. And I was doing some soul searching about like how I could equalize the two. And my online students obviously takes their tests on Canvas online. And so I asked my dean, is there any way I can get a computer lab so I can take my in-person students? They get their test scores back immediately. They don't have to have Scantrons. I can regrade it automatically. Like there's a lot of benefits to Canvas testing if you're doing that format of testing. And she said, sure, and found me a computer lab. If I hadn't asked, I would have still been dealing with that. So
And what happened? Did your in-person, who was doing better?
the online was doing
Right.
because they're cheap. But I'm trying to do.
So it didn't really change the outcome.
It helps. I mean, just getting
Scantrons are a nightmare.
immediate
For a lot of
feedback from
students.
students. I felt
Yes.
it was unfair that my
Learning in real time.
and especially it was the first semester I taught the same class online and in person, like simultaneously, and it was really apparent that like my in-person classes were getting way better education, but they were suffering a little bit in little ways. So
I love that you did that. All right, 2 seconds here, 2 seconds. DSPS is here to help you. Reach out. We have a lot of different support services, a lot of accommodations. Neither of these lists are exhaustive. I think the biggest thing I want to say, and you are here, so you already know this, but we're here to provide equal access, not better. Because I hear that at least once a day, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. Well, how do I get this thing so I can do better, so I can be better? Or, well, that's not fair. And it really is fair. We're just trying to establish what the disability is, what the limitations are that are connected to that disability, and how to provide accommodations to make it equal. Also, if you're looking for examples of a syllabus, of something to add to your syllabus, under the employee side, I'll just thank you for doing that. Yeah, I know. I was laughing at myself, but I couldn't find it before because I didn't know. Okay, so on the employee side, here we go. Under college-wide, if you go, departments and services, and down to DSPS. Thank you. And right here,
Why is this so varied?
you know,
Statement for programs and course syllabi.
and so there's a couple there if you're looking for.
From employee, what's the first designation?
It's the far left. It's college-wide services,
Okay.
but then it's college-wide resources, and that's under departments and services.
Oh my God.
I know. No, I know. Thank you. Yeah, and then it's alphabetical.
Okay.
I agree. I don't know.
It's good to know that it is there.
Yes, and
And there are several examples.
yeah, well, that's good.
Thank you.
Have Stacy or somebody else come talk to your class.
Yeah.
I did get a lot of I did a lot of that last semester and I got a lot of people reaching out after I did that. So
So here's just a couple resources that I found to be helpful in terms of like creating positive classroom climate, just generally, but also for disabled students. And then syllabus and accessibility tips from the National Disability Center for Student Success. Along with all of the instructional design resources that were earlier in the slideshow. There are definitely resources to help you think further about this, maybe implement some changes, maybe rethink a couple things in the classroom. This whole presentation is born out of a desire to have people just sort of start thinking and considering the way that they do things. Nobody's demanding that you go in and you change everything about your whole class all at the same time, because we as instructors also need to care for ourselves and not burn out. Yeah, I hope you continue to think about this. If you have any, if you want to talk things over with someone, I know I'm available to just chat.
Definitely.
Available to chat.
Yes.
And Brandy is available, and Leslie too. Yeah, we're all available. All the presenters are available to just, I don't know, if you want to bounce ideas off somebody. The other thing is please take the Flex survey. Only take it if you enjoyed the Flex, and you can.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, if there's something you could do better, that was perhaps being more organized.
Oh,
And I'm gonna blame the tax failure.
yeah, right.
Sure.
But yeah, we are over time. If anybody wants to talk more, you're welcome to stay. I can hang out for a little bit. But I will let everybody else go.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for coming.
Also, please put your emails in the chat if you would like to have a copy of this presentation emailed to you. It will also be available later through the professional development canvas. But yes, we appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. Please reach out if you want to talk about anything.
Thank you, Elaine.